Hello, everybody, and welcome back to another episode of the Cheer the Duck Up podcast. I'm your host, Tom Stockdale, here with my co-host, David Page. How are you, my friend?
I'm not too bad, thank you, mate. How are you doing?
I am very good. I'm actually stuck in a bit of a thought, right? I've been thinking a lot the past few days about how we're all related.
Okay.
Right? And we use the word brother as a term of affection quite a lot, right? It means like I care about you like as much as I possibly can. So even when it gets diluted down to bro, it's still got that a connotation of like of
tribalism, perhaps.
Yeah, maybe so.
Yeah.
So I have been thinking how everyone is related and how abstract it feels. And a few podcasts ago, I mentioned that we don't really know our lineage that far back. Maybe you know the name of a great grandparent, right? But then this is where I've been stuck, and this is what's confusing me a lot. Is you've got two parents. You've got 4 grandparents, you've got 8 great-grandparents, you've got 16 great-great-grandparents, and then that exponentially grows, right? So if you take that back even 40 generations, you should have 1 trillion ancestors, right? But there hasn't been that many people.
Oh my God. So
the only other answer is that we're all related. So at what point, how far back on the great-great-greats are we all related? So we are literally all related. We are all one big fuck-off family.
Well, the human race is definitely one big family, isn't it? I definitely agree with that. I mean, that's the kind of thought that will make your brain turn to mush and tip out your ears. But no, I get it. Here's another one to chuck into that as well. When I was a kid, we didn't have Neanderthals, but now not only do we have human beings, but we have Neanderthals, Denisovans. Like, I'm sure I thought they'd found another one the other day. Just, another type of humanoid that existed amongst human beings. Like, what the fuck? Like, what are you talking about? Yeah, well, it's a good question. I mean, where also? When, who, and where, isn't it? Mm-hmm. I mean, it's like, I'm a big fan of Graham Hancock, and you are too.
Yeah.
And I love the way he looks at the ancient civilizations, and isn't this why we find it fascinating? Because it's like, how do you know where you're going if you don't know where you come from, right? But yeah, no, it's true. It's like, what we're talking about here, we were talking about a group of humanoids around a campfire, some part of the world, and it just spread. Are we talking about like the Denisovans met a Neanderthal, met a humanoid, and they had a baby, and that became our lineage? What was here when our lineage was created? Like, are we talking about it goes all the way straight back to the primordial soup, with nothing but amino acids and proteins like that, just coincidentally sparking into life with some sort of chemical reaction, and we're supposed to just believe that that's the end of it? We're talking about like the theory of evolution. That's why they call it the theory of evolution.
It wrecks your head, mate, because
theory.
We don't know, right? And there's some things that are easy to accept. It's easier to accept it's X than it's this, and whether that's religion or it's science or whatever it is, something to accept. But realistically, when you think about it, and you think all the way back to just after the Big Bang, when everything is just hot stardust, you leave that long enough and it turns into a Big Mac. It makes a Big Mac.
First and foremost, that's the name of our band, sorted. Hot Stardust. Yeah, no, I mean, not only the Big Mac, but us. Like, you're looking at a star with eyeballs and a brain and
made out of the same stuff.
Yeah, man. Whoa, man. Should we have a little smoke break?
It certainly feels like it, but that's what I have been stuck on. So it started. I was thinking, like, right, okay, you got 4 grandparents. Okay, and then that keeps on, like, and I've never even thought past the fact that you have 4 grandparents.
Well, mathematically, I suppose it works a little bit because people have more than one child, I suppose. So that would explain some of it. I don't know, as if I'm going to know. Like, it's like retards are us over here, right? Don't worry about that. I'm not claiming to know anything at all in particular in general. There's the disclaimer going out there. I am an official retard, card carrying. But I'm a very curious one. And yeah, no, I mean, it's... well, let me tell you a little bit about my family, right? So the only reason I've got any kind of grasp on this at all, because the only reason I can go a little bit further back in my imagination is because my grandma's lineage goes back to the Earl of Cardigan. Right?
All right.
Yeah, so the Earl of Cardigan, for all you history buffs out there, was the famous general in the army, British Army, who led the charge of the Light Brigade during the Crimean War. I'm pretty sure, anyway. It's been a while since I thought about this. I'm reaching it out of the back of my mind because it's buried in my mind. Look, it was buried in my grandma's mind. This is part of our family history which wasn't spoke about because it was considered quite taboo and quite sort of unacceptable. But the simple fact of the matter is, this guy Like, my family were yokels from a random town in Northamptonshire, and he was the most famous person in the country at the time. The Charge of Light Brigade was a huge deal, and it was in every newspaper in the land at the time, and this guy was, like, massively respected. He was a very, very big deal. He had an estate with a whole squad of servants, and basically, cut a long story short, one of those servants was where my lineage started. He basically boffed the servant, as you would. It gets a bit gross because you're going, okay, was that a consensual relationship or not? You know,
probably not. But
but we always assume the worst. But I mean, I think they were still men and women at the end of the day, so we don't know for sure. Maybe she just wanted a piece of the famous dude. I mean, we don't know. But one way or another, it did happen, and he gave her some money and hooked her up with the gardener and bought them a house in London and set them off to start up a new life together, raising his son. And the reason that they were so sure it was his son, because it was all sort of known at the time, but sort of kept hush. In later life, he fell off his horse, had a bad riding accident, and he's lying in his bed, and they told him he was going to die. And one of his dying wishes was like, "Send for my son. He's in London with the gardener." And they're like, "Shit, okay, better see to his wishes." And this poor bloke was dragged up and paraded before him as he's lying there in his deathbed, and he's like, "I am your father," and he's like, "Okay, well, give me some money then, you cunt." Surely, right? You know. But I'm pretty sure the story goes that he made a full recovery.
Yeah, yeah.
Bit awkward. But anyway, so it's just basically, the thing is, that was my grandma's grandma, right? Her dad. So my grandma's great granddad. Yeah. Oh my God.
I don't know, could be.
Okay. You can sort that one out in the comments below if you want. Not contradict me, but that helped me get an understanding for where my family came from in a sort of larger sense, if you know what I'm saying, though. That's the point of it, really. I mean, I would imagine that a lot of us in this country can trace our heritage back to some sort of mixing of the classes there, because it was totally unaccepted. It was just part of the course that you'd be sent away and all the rest of it. So it's a bit weird, but I did get the sense of like, okay, so whilst that was going on, like, where was the rest of my family? Like you say, so we're talking about, how many of them was there? 32 or 64 relatives at this point, or 108 or like 128?
Yeah.
And it sets the mind and your imagination spinning, doesn't it?
And
because where were they? Were they in Britain? Were they not? They could have been like different ethnicities. You know, if you've got like 128 relatives and one of them's Chinese or of a different ethnicity, whatever, and then that could be, you know, it wouldn't be traceable necessarily now to this day. And it is absolutely fascinating. Yeah.
It's so abstract as well. Like, what got me kind of thinking down that path too is I just kind of realized that right now I'm the center of my family, right? My own little family. I am the head of it, and I look after the kids, and like, I feel very central. And then I only know my great granddad was called Thomas. That's the only one out of all of them.
His first name?
Yeah. Right. That's the only one out of all of them that I actually know. So in as little as 2 generations, I'm going to be, well, I could be forgotten. Like, I guess it's different now because of technology, and I'm all over the internet.
Well, yeah, I know what you mean, but like, don't forget, I mean, like, it only takes one electromagnetic pulse, and all of the electronic data that we have stored about ourselves
back to the Dark Ages.
How do we know that didn't happen in the past? That's another story for another day. We really will have to have a smoke break, won't we?
Yeah, for sure. The idea of lost technologies and ancient civilizations and where the pyramids are, and
talking about shit like when you go down the tunnels underneath the pyramids, how come there's no soot? Like, what were they using to light that? Like, there's no evidence of any light source down there, but they were supposed to have been using handheld torches or whatever, like fiery torches. But no, what it is, it doesn't do justice to the importance of what we're talking about. It's very, very important to know where you come from if you want to know where you're going. We owe these people, our relatives, everything. We wouldn't be here if it wasn't for them. They deserve our respect. They deserve to be remembered.
Yeah,
you know, they deserve to be acknowledged and ideally carried forward in our heart. And I think that would give us all a far better sense of who we are, and more self-respect. If you realise it's, you know, stop feeling sorry for yourself. Like, there's people, those generations, if they could see you now, by God, they'd be so proud of you. They'd be so grateful for your existence.
Yeah, we live better than kings now.
Of course we do. But they're just the sheer fact that you've even made it, like, through all these twists and turns which could have been, that they created the world that we live in now. And we don't even talk about them.
Yeah, exactly. Which is strange. And like, I depersonalize quite a lot. So this, as crazy as this sounds, sometimes I don't feel like I'm real. Right? Everything just feels so weird and so so abstract and away from me that I don't think I'm real, and then I feel like I'm inside of this bodysuit controlling it, and like I'm kind of observing it. Like I'm not my thoughts, I'm the one observing my thoughts.
Maybe you're talking about like the idea that like we are consciousness experiencing itself.
Yes.
Right? Yeah.
So
I hear what you're saying.
The best way I found to describe it is I feel like I've been dropped into a movie halfway through. I don't know what type of movie it is. I don't know what's already happened. I didn't even want to be in this movie, and I don't have a choice but to play scene to scene and to play my role. And that makes me feel trapped and weird and like I said, kind of depersonalized. Like I'm not real. I'm like, so I don't even know if a free will is real, and I get stuck in this sort of thing. But I don't think I would feel that way if I'd seen the start of the movie.
So one of the big questions, like the big questions, would you say is, because you don't know it and I don't know it, does someone know it, right? Is there some being or some entity or consciousness itself? Does consciousness itself understand and we don't? Like, what do you think to that? I mean, what I'm saying is, like, we don't know why we're here. Is there some sort of bank of energy or information at some point, somewhere in this universe of ours that does understand it all and is watching us? Maybe I
don't even necessarily think there has to be. It would just be nice if there was, right?
Cool.
And that's where my brain kind of goes to, because I've mentioned before as well that I started looking into religion for the first time, and not just immediately dismissing it. Right now, my problem with a religion is I trust God, whatever that may be, right? And I know the word God has a lot of connotations. Like you can picture, I don't know, maybe Allah or some Ganesh, some elephant head thing, or some big white bloke with beards and sandals walking about. That's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about whatever the driving force is, right? So I trust that, but I don't trust men. And a religion is mullered by men. I know, right? I trust you as much as I trust anybody else. I know that I can say to you, get a message to Kate next week, and I want you to tell her this, right? And you're like, okay. And then you can't really do it, so you tell Jenny. And she's like, okay. And then she can't really do it, so she tells someone else that works here, and it gets back to Kate in a week's time, a different message. Maybe like a couple of bits of what I said, but all in all, a different message. That's in the space of a week with all people that I trust. How am I supposed to go back 2,000 years? And like, how can I not be cynical in a world where you see Matt Hancock doing the type of stuff that he's doing and this constant corruption? How can I not be cynical and think, okay, so everything around me is telling me as soon as human beings get any type of power, they turn corrupt. Absolute power corrupts absolutely, right? You hear that all the time. So how am I supposed to trust these people with the answer to everything?
That's a really interesting thought. You see a child pull the wings off a fly, right? That's the beginning of it, like power being abused and stuff. It's clearly part of who we are, isn't it? It's clearly in us all. I mean, Hitler, Mussolini, Chairman Mao, you know, whoever you want to choose as an example, they're still a human being, right? We're still the same family. We just agreed that we're a human race as one family, and I do believe that. So if they could do it, surely we could do it. It's one way of approaching this.
Yeah.
I think, just to go back a little bit to the idea of consciousness experiencing itself, is like something I've heard a lot of people sort of like just want to mull over, and it's not easy to understand, and you have to spend some time thinking about it. And I'm not saying that I don't understand it fully, but from what I understand of it and stuff, it's the idea is like, I think people used to think that consciousness happened in your brain and then you experienced it through your mind and acted it out through your body. But I think the more modern way of looking at it is like, actually consciousness is available to us all, and we're more like an antenna just interacting with consciousness at this one point of consciousness, and that we're all connected to a way bigger thing, and that bigger thing, we call it consciousness, because there's no explanation for consciousness. You'll never see a scientist be able to write down the chemical formula for consciousness. Or
we don't know what it is.
We don't know what it is. We don't know what its function is. We don't know what the mechanism is that makes. How come we can understand what consciousness is, even if it's just to this extent? We know that it's something there.
Yeah, just the fact we can come up with a concept.
I do know that there's been experiments held where you take the daily crossword out of The Guardian, or let's say it's a nationally syndicated newspaper, and you time people and how long it takes them to complete the crossword, right? And the idea is that later on during the day, in the evening, like people finish it faster than they did in the early part of the day, the morning. Try not to butcher this, bear with me. It's quite complicated to explain this because it doesn't make a lot of sense. But the idea is that basically, because so many people have solved the problems before you, because so many people have completed that crossword, it's imprinted into consciousness that we all share the answer to those things, that it will come to the person who starts it anew in the evening time a lot faster because some of that work's been done. There's a name for that and I can't remember it off the top of my head right now. All of it just leads to this thought that there's something going on, doesn't it? And the relevance of having these thoughts is that it's worth remembering that when we're getting asked to do things that we don't really want to do and we're not sure if we should be doing them. Like when Matt Hancock tells you to social distance and then he snogs his secretary or his assistant, whatever the hell she was, maybe we should think twice, like, what's his motivation? Right, he's a human being. He wants his, right? He's trying to gain power. He's,
going back to what you were saying about the idea of being an antenna, right? And kind of there's like one consciousness that we all kind of tune into. I've had this thought for a little while as well, right? Assuming that's real. So if you imagine it like a consciousness is like a server, right? So say it's like a social media or something, and then you log in, all the information is kind of intertwined and stuff. So then everyone's on a 9 to 5, right? Obviously not everyone, like 9 to 5 is kind of sold as this kind of awful idea, but I grew up where you're in shit 8-hour contracts and you're lucky to get a 12 till 2 shift. So the actual idea of a 9 to 5 and a consistent salary and not being fucked over is great for people. But what I'm getting at is 9 to 5, everyone sets their alarm for 6:30, right? At 6:30, all of these people are waking up at the same time. Bang, everybody all jumps onto the server at the same time, and everybody gets either day going, and it feels slow in the morning as you're tired, and then obviously by the end of the day you've got your different energy. But there's no time to think about this because you've got to get the bus and you're running late and your boss is a dickhead, so you can't be late or he's going to give you a hard time, and then you have to pay your council tax. So these first 3 days of your labour that you've sold are gone because you've had to pay for some MP's expenses or some nonsense like that.
Well, or you're paying for the killing machine that our government operates, where it goes to countries and does unspeakable things that they don't tell us about and we're not supposed to think about, and they kill innocent people, men, women and children and old people all over the world every single day for profit. So that's what they do with our taxpayers' money.
There's all of these different things all at once. So the idea of, like, I spoke to you about a meditation, and I've done a little bit where I just I do mindful meditation. So I sit there, I focus on just my breathing. As soon as a thought comes into my head, because there's no way to turn your brain off, it's always like, you need to worry about this. I acknowledge that thought, and then it's like, okay, it's there. I touch it, and then I push it away, and then I'm back. I'll sit there, I'll set a timer on my phone so I'm not getting interrupted and I don't have to worry. And when I come out of that, I have this kind of clarity where just my mind is quiet and it's calm, and then I open my eyes and I'm looking at the grass, and then I realize, wow, that's where it all starts. There's this grass that the bugs eat.
Grass is amazing.
You're looking at it and you're thinking it's green because it eats the sun. This is crazy how it's turning it into sugars and making this thing. It ends up leading me to what I perceive as profound thoughts. It's not that I open my eyes with this implanted idea, it's just my mind is quiet, and then when it's quiet I can focus on one thing long enough and not be distracted by Twitter likes or this or the world's on fire or all of this. Like, so while I'm doing that, I had this kind of a realization, like the most profound one for me is that the past and the future don't even exist, right? Like, they're not tangible, they're not real, you can't get to them. There's no way that you can get back and change it or jump ahead and change anything. Right now is the only time that exists. So what happened last week that I think, I'm a fucking dickhead of, like, obviously the ripples of consequence can kind of transcend this thing. But if I'm worried about something next week, it is happening on Monday, no matter what I do, unless I just don't go to it. So I'm going to let it ruin my now all the way until tomorrow, which never comes. Mm-hmm. So that means that my now is constantly ruined. So then why am I worried about, how am I going to get a pension? What am I going to do for this, that, and the other? When, like, look, this thing on the floor is eating the fucking sun. Oh, what's that? A bee. Yeah, what does that do? Feed all of us. That's pollinating this, and then a bird eat that, and then a fox eat, like, and it just goes up and up and up, and then it shifts everything into perspective. There's so much going on and so much to worry about all the time, like the fact that I fill up my car and I'm putting a bullet in a gun that's shooting a kid on the other side of the world. I got really stuck in that once, and it's like, I'm part of this system. I don't have a choice. I was born halfway through this film into this system I don't want to partake on, but if I don't play the game, I die, basically. I get outcast, I get no help from society or the resources. I have to play the game, and there's no other choice. So then I ended up getting caught up in this a terrible thought, but then I started to think, I can't see it. And that might sound cold. I know it's happening, but I can't do anything about it. So I got this overwhelming feeling that the world is on fire and I need to fix it. but I can't fix it because I'm this powerless one little individual, right?
Well, you have to come to this. It's hard to understand that basically you could spend your whole life doing nothing but good. You could be carbon neutral. You could be nothing but a giver. You could spend your whole life doing nothing but good for other people until it wears you out and you die. And it's not going to make a shred of difference to the overall system that we live in.
That is a terrifying, horrible
That will
thought.
cheer you up, won't it?
Yeah. The idea of that, how are you supposed to cheer the duck up when the weight of all of this is on your shoulders, right? It's terrifying, but I do have an answer, so don't you worry. I first came to this realization, nothing you see in the media doesn't make sense. When you see something, that doesn't make sense. No, it does, you just don't understand it. What mine came from was I was listening to two artists, one called Loki and one called Akala. They were singing about the wars and this, that, and the other. So then I saw this, a news thing, there was some kind of attack on our troops in the Middle East in some country we shouldn't have been in. I thought, like, that doesn't make sense. We're over there trying to help them, right? We're trying to save them. We're trying to stop the terrorists and we're trying to do this and blah, blah, blah. So why are they attacking us back? That doesn't make sense. No, it does make sense. I just don't understand, right? We're the bad guys. We are the big bad wolf. We're going over there. They didn't listen to what we wanted them. So we lied about WMDs and Tony Blair got us in there and that war criminal did what he did and then his wife changed the law and he got back out of it, right? So I realized this and went down that kind of a rabbit hole of the thought. I think it's actually one of Akala's lines. He says something about, I'm tired of filling up my car and paying for the bombs in Iraq or something like that. And then I was like, wow. And I got really down by the fact that the world's on fire and I can't make a single difference. And then I was on the bus on the way to a job I hated and I was sat there being all miserable and grumpy, empty bus, and an old man comes on and sits next to me. I'm like, fuck's sake. But I was ignoring him and looking out the window. He pulled my headphone out my ear. He's like, what's the matter with you then, lad? Like, you've woke up on the wrong side of the bed today, and you? I was like, oh, what do you mean? Like, the world's on fire. I'm going to work a job that I hate for a faceless corporation where I'm just a number, right? And I'm wasted there. All of my humanity is being reduced down to just say yes please and no thank you and offer to take the shop into the car.
And
Like,
if I don't do it, I lose my home.
I have to do it. So I'm a wage slave, right? Like I have to do this thing to only just cover my bills and live paycheck to paycheck. And while I'm moaning about this, there's some poor fucking cunt that can't even have a drink of clean water. What am I supposed to do about this? And then he told me one of the best analogies I've ever heard in my life. He said there was an old man and his grandson walking down the beach, and the beach is covered in starfish. They're everywhere. And the old man sees it, he's like, oh, that's a bit grim. And the young lad panics, he's, oh my God, and he runs down, starts picking them up, dashing them back in the water. But it's like a mile of beach covered in starfish. And the old man says to him, like, lad, you're not going to make a difference, just stop, right? And he picks up one more, dashes it into the water and says, well, I made a difference to that one, didn't I? It was like an audible click of, I can't change the entire world, but I can help individuals. And yeah, I can't help that whole beach, but I can help that one starfish. So then if I have an opportunity to be nice, or an opportunity to do the right thing, even if it's going out of my way without being too much of a detriment to myself, then I can change the world one starfish at a time.
A thought occurs because it's like, yes, if you did spend your entire life doing nothing but good and giving, whatever you decide to quantify that, you're not going to make that much of a difference. But then again, if you spend your entire existence worrying about it and fretting about it and being depressed about it and sitting in your own misery, contemplating it, that's not going to make any change at all. Maybe somewhere in the middle lies the answer. I guess from what you're saying, it's very true. We can affect the world around us, right? Mm-hmm. I guess that's what you're saying.
Yeah. So on an individual basis, like, it's the same as when you're depressed and your room's a mess and you haven't been looking after yourself. You haven't shaved. You got long hair. You're looking a bit greasy, and you started to put weight on, and your house is all going to shit. The thought of tackling all of that, it is such a monumental Goliath-sized task that it's just overwhelming, and you're knackered before you start, right? But if you just go have a shower, that's your first step. It's a small step. There's still loads to do. But then it's exactly what we learned at dancing. When you look at the whole dance routine now, you think, I'll never be able to do that. You break it down to the tapping of the feet, and then it's heels, and then it's that back step thing, then the other back step thing. And you break this big, monumental, terrifying task down into tiny steps that you can do and understand. So you have a shave. You cook yourself dinner instead of ordering takeaway in. You do your dishes. Every time you leave your bedroom, you just take one cup down.
So there was a time in my life when I took stock and realised it's no wonder I was depressed, because everything I was doing was going wrong. I wasn't working towards any goals that I really wanted to achieve, and it was just like one of those moments in life where I felt really, really depressed, and I knew I needed to make a change. And I made the most profound and humongous change that moment. I put my trainers on. I went to the local park and ran around it one time. Okay, I mean, it's not a very big park. I'm talking about it's less than a mile from door to door. And came back to the same spot I was on, the sofa. Like, I was on the sofa lying there thinking about shit and being miserable. Got up, put my trainers on, one lap back, and it changed my life. Like, it did honestly change my life. So I was smoking so much at the time that it just wrecked my lungs and just shredded them, and I felt terrible and I had a headache and it's like cold sweats. That's what will happen if you're really, really unfit, and just go for it. And I just knew, okay, well, that's day one. Right, next time I'll do 2 laps and stuff. And this is like, as soon as I felt better, which was like took 2 or 3 days, maybe even 4 days, and those days I was so unfit, I went out and did 2 laps and I came back and it took me a bit less time to recover. And then obviously from there I progressed and did 3 or 4 laps and on I went. And basically it ended up being a moment that changed my life. To get off of the sofa of depression, that 1 mile route or less than 1 mile route, every journey begins with a step, so they say, right? But it's really true. And if there's one thing in your reach that you can do that will improve your state of mind and improve your positivity, don't think it's not worth it. It is worth it. And you don't know what it could do for the rest of your life. I mean, I'm talking about that set me up for my entire life from that point. Like, up to that point, I hadn't been doing any exercise. I've been eating terribly. I've been abusing myself with like alcohol and cigarettes. I never went back to that place from that moment, sitting there on the sofa of despair. I remember actually I was watching Gangs of New York.
What a movie.
Yeah. Long movie as well,
yeah.
Right? Plenty of time to think in that movie. Yeah, so I watched like half of it, went for a run, came back, watched the rest of it, and every time I think of that film now I get a shudder of like that shredded lung feeling.
Yeah.
And just, it does matter. And like, there's people out there that want you to do it and stuff, and you'll never be on your own. Even if you feel like you're alone, you're not. The human race is one family, and if you take one step out that front door and break out your comfort zone and improve yourself, based on what we've just been saying earlier in this chat, like, that's contributing to the whole family of human race. So you can do it.
And just at that one step, and it's important to hold yourself accountable, but at the same time, like, there's no need to kind of drill sergeant yourself. Like, oh, well, that's not good enough. Look at what they're doing next door. You're not that person next door. You're you. Mm-hmm. What were you doing yesterday? Sat on the sofa. What are you doing now? Right? You're going for a walk. Good. That's better. Next day, okay, what you doing? Are you walking further? Oh no, you're jogging now. Okay, well done. Month's time, oh, you've just done a 5k, have you? Fucking congratulations, mate. As postcardy and hallmarky as it does sound, it does start with one step. And in my peak of chaos, right, when like I had a particularly really bad 2 weeks where I lost my job, my mum had a stroke, my car got smashed up. I wasn't allowed to see my kids because of weaponizing children problems. Everything that could go wrong truly went wrong, right? I almost lost my flat. I lost my job. Like and my car had been smashed. I had no idea what to do. It was total chaos. And
I wish I'd known you then. Just hearing you say that, I just wish I'd known you then, mate.
I had no one to turn to. And as much as some of it, right, like I was accountable for, right, to a point. So I'm not saying it's just, the world was totally shagging me, but the world was shagging me then, right? I was getting totally fucked, and so much of these problems were out of my control. Like, I lost my job because my car got smashed up, and that was the second time this had fucking happened. Just a random act of vandalism, a wrong place, wrong time, twice.
Was it in Gosport or Plymouth?
Here.
It was here?
It was here.
Wow.
Yeah. First time it happened, someone put a brick through my windshield. My mum had come up to visit me, and I was parked in a pay and display car park next to a police station, and just some random guy, 8:20 in the morning, who's up that early going about being a cunt. You've got to set an alarm and think, I know, right, I'll have a nice early start of being a dickhead today. I did end up getting hold of that person through the police, and I spoke to them and stuff, and they were having a really bad day, like mental health episode. It was just a case of wrong place at wrong time.
Would it be really petty of me to say, look, I'll throw a brick through your windscreen, then we'll call it quits?
Well, like,
that's probably not a very
positive
way to approach it.
But I thought about that, right? Like the first thing, like, because I got an opportunity to speak to this person. He was explaining his tale of a sorrow, and it was horrible. The guy was going through some shit. But I said, but then your straw almost broke my back. Like, it was this close with everything else that was all going on. And every time I was climbing back up the slippery slope of fucking life, I'd get an elbow on and some kind of kick me in the face and I'd fall back down. And there's only so many times where it's like, is this not insanity? I'm doing the same thing and expecting a different fucking result. I just keep getting kicked in the face. So I had this awful 2 weeks where it was chaos and it was all out of my hands and I couldn't do anything about it. And I'd already kind of tapped out all of my help it wasn't really a pride thing, but I'd already asked, and I already owed this guy 100 quid and this guy a couple £100, and I owed this guy a bit more for this, and I'd already asked. It's hard enough I had to go the first time and say, like, mate, I'm fucked over, can you lend me some money or something like that? But then the second or third time, and I still haven't paid you back from the first time, you have to take care of yourself first. Your cupboards have to be full before you start feeding next door, right? So it was all chaos, and it felt like it was all out of control and horrible. So all I could control in that time was what I was doing with myself. Right, okay, the first thing I'm going to start doing is going to start brushing my teeth.
Brushing your teeth?
Yeah, like I wasn't even showering. Never mind brushing my teeth, mate. Like I wasn't taking care of myself at all. So
you had no love for yourself at all.
Yeah, so now I'm going to wake up and I'm going to brush my teeth. And then before I go to bed, I'm going to brush my teeth. And that's the only task that I'm asking of myself today, is to not kill myself and to brush my teeth. And I got up and I done it and I felt good, right? Because it was never really driven into me at home that you have to do it. So holding myself accountable for something as small as that. So then it started as, okay, I'll start to brush my teeth. Sound, right. Now I'm going to start to shower every day. Now I'm going to eat. So what I used to do a lot was I'd get to a point where I'd end up with like 30, 40 quid. So I'd get a gig. And the way that I got gigs was just put my balls on the fucking table, metaphorically, because that's another bar to work in. But I'd walk in with my guitar and say, look, mate, let me explain what I do. Like, give me a word. And you give me a word, and I'd play, and I'd show them what I can do, and say, I can do that here, right? If you trick me 30, 40 quid, I can do it for like 40 minutes to an hour before people start to get bored. And when it's the right crowd in, it changes the whole atmosphere. Everybody loves it because they can join in, they're shouting me stuff, and I incorporate it in as I go.
Did that have an effect on your depression?
Yes, 100%.
I mean, of course it had an effect. I mean, what was the effect? Did it help you break through and start brushing your teeth on day one? And was that part of the process that got you there?
So brushing the teeth first, that just kind of programmed my mind to understand there is habits that I can change. I just have to work on them, and I can change things. And then when I went in, and the first guy that gave me a chance was at the Manor in Conway. It's a really nice kind of caravan park, a sort of thing. Got a really nice bar, beautiful area. And I went in and I just shot my shot with it. And he said, okay, right, I'll give you 20 quid to do an hour. If people aren't enjoying it, I'll still pay it. Because I did lay it on him a bit and say, look, mate, my life is on fire right now and I need a break. I need you to be my break for me, please. Like, so he said, look, I'll give you 20 quid. But if people aren't responding well to it, then you're going to have to wrap your ego in and fuck off. I was like, mate, cool.
Took a lot of motivation and a lot of balls. To get up there and even ask him that as well, by the way. In my opinion, when you're depressed, just that act was big of you anyway.
For sure. And when you're getting continuously kind of shafted, I kind of figured, like, well, I'm lubed up already and life's been fucking me hard, and what's the worst that can happen?
Yeah.
He said, okay, I'll come back 7 o'clock and we'll see how we get on. I was like, okay. So I went there, a stage tom took over. So whenever there's high pressure, it's not me anymore. It's some ultra confident, just amazing version of myself that is just, everything is water for ducks back in, and I sit back and he takes over, and he thinks faster than me, he's wittier than me, he's more confident than me, and I am just sat back watching myself do this. So like when I'm doing the freestyles, I hear them the same time as everybody else. Sometimes I can jump ahead if I know I'm going to say something a bit too risky, or if there's kids about and I need to not swear, I can kind of jump ahead. But when I'm really in the flow state, I hear it at the same time as you, or when I listen to it back, I'm like, oh, that was a bar, I'll put that in an actual song or something like that. And I got up and I was doing it, and luckily the perfect crowd was in. I was like I think on like a stag do or something. So then they were like, oh yeah, this is whatever mate's name was, and he's getting married, and we want you to kind of bully him a bit. So I made a song about how he's only marrying his missus because he's gay and he's trying to cover it up, and that he's actually in love with the best man, and they're sharing a caravan, and just all his mates were in stitches, and they were laughing and they were rolling, and then people from other parts of the bar started to come through to see what was going on, and then they're shouting everything. And as they shout a word, the very next word in the song that I'm making up on the spot is the word they've said. So it's blowing their mind, right? Like when you watch it on a video, you might think, oh yeah, that's pretty cool, or I'm not interested. But in person, it's a different experience, right? Because like you really know, oh fuck, like this isn't pre-written, and it's not always amazing, but when it is, like what we did at Christmas and stuff, like it just changes the whole atmosphere and the whole vibe, and it's a great time. And I looked over and I saw the bar manager standing there with a smile and his arms crossed, and he winked at me. I was like, fucking yes, like that's my fucking 20 quid got, and I was gassed, and I did it.
That guy's a legend.
Fucking legend for giving me a break. And then I ended up doing it for about an hour and a half, which is way longer than I was supposed to. It was, what's your name? Like, have you got any socials and stuff? And I said, well, I've got a Facebook page, because on my YouTube was me talking about trying not to kill myself. So it's not really relevant to the music then. It was before I started to post it. I was, I've got
pre-cheer the duck up.
Yeah, way pre, a long time ago now. And then like, oh, that was amazing, mate. I've not laughed like that in such a long time. You've made my stag do. That was like, oh, I wish I recorded that, and that was incredible. We're going to come back. Can I take your number too? Is there any way I can get hold of you to book you in for something? Because like I've got a mate's birthday party down south, so we could talk about that. So I was like, yeah, right, yeah, of course. And then they passed a pint glass round, and I made like 240 quid in tips.
Wow.
And the barman gave me 50 quid as well, right? Because loads of them were trying to buy me drinks, but I was driving, so I preemptively said, if anyone tries to put a drink behind the bar for me, can you just put the cash in a pint glass?
I've done gigs like that, yeah.
Yeah.
Oh my goodness. Yeah. No, I don't need a rider. like £5 will help.
Yeah, for sure. I really, really need it. In an hour and a half, I made more than I made in the first 2 weeks at this new job that I'd started, because they're giving me shit hours, 12 hours a week or something like that. So I was like, oh my God, like that was fun as well. And that was the first time I'd really enjoyed something and then made money for it. Like I would have done it for free if it wasn't for the fact, obviously, desperate need of cash. It was just such an enjoyable experience. And then that led on to, I ended up playing that guy's birthday somewhere near the Midlands. And it was just this big fuck off kind of, like a manor house too, in the middle of nowhere, on private land. I walked in there, there's a mountain of drugs on the kind of breakfast bar. There's like a whole bag of weed, there's like a saucer full of cocaine and all this magic. I was like, fucking hell.
Just saying that scares me now.
I was like, all right, well, here we are. It was, oh, help yourself. I was like, no, that's not for me, buddy, thank you.
Gig first.
They paid me 500 quid.
500 quid?
Yeah, they paid my expenses down, and they said like, oh, we can put you up too, right? And I thought like I'd be in a little side room or something.
And what next? Like, and there's a couple of birds in your bed for you,
mate. There was a whole guest house.
Oh Jesus!
Which was better than the flat that I lived in. Like I only had to play maybe 20 minutes at a time about 3 times. When it's just kind of like, hey monkey, come dance. The first time everyone's like, oh that's amazing, lad. Oh yeah, well done. Oh, where'd you find him? And then by the last one, when everyone's coked up, everyone's just handing me handfuls of cash. Right, so I'm like 6. So from that trip, I ended up making about 1,500 quid.
Bloody hell!
Right, so I was like, at the time, one of the things that kept on breaking on my car was my gear linkage. Right, and it was held together with cable ties. I'd made some crazy, intricate shit, like the thickest cable ties that I could find from a B&Q, all peaked around a Jubilee clip, and I don't know, fuck all about cars. I couldn't go past 4th. Because
isn't necessity the mother of invention?
Yeah. So it was ideal. Well, I can get that fixed and I can get that sorted. But that just throwing myself out there to get into that situation, which was like, I've got a stutter, mate. I didn't like being on stage in front of people at all, any sort of thing. And to get up there with no plan and say, this only works if you join in. So what are you going to say? And then let's get the ball rolling and stuff.
You couldn't get more terrifying. You've got no set list. There's no rehearsals. You're entirely on your own.
No plan.
You got your stutter to deal with on top of everything else. And it all started from the smallest step.
It started from brushing my teeth.
It started from brushing your teeth. Just to go back to your story. Did you ever see... That's a wonderful story. Like, thank you for sharing it. I think that's really inspirational, I think. And how old were you when you did this?
22, maybe 23.
Yeah, you were a puppy, dude.
Yeah,
you were a puppy. You know, it's just that I think all people need to be aware that like you can do it. You can take the first step. You don't have to go on stage and be an absolute legend like Tom Stockdale off of YouTube. It could be anything. It can be applying for the job you want. It can be telling your boss that you don't want to work there anymore and setting yourself free. And it could be a million things. Asking that girl out you want to ask out or anything. Starting a small business. Starting your own YouTube channel.
Or just tidying your bedroom. Anything.
Just clearing some space in your brain. You can do it, and then people do care about you. Like we care about you. Like we wouldn't put this podcast together if we didn't care about the people who were listening to it. I just wanted to ask you if you ever saw the guy on the bus ever again.
No.
Never saw him again.
No, but I've had 2 incidents just like that where it was old men too. I had the same kind of a feeling I had when I met Kate, where I just thought it was psychosis, where it was just exactly what I needed at the right time, so my brain made it up. I really thought that.
Yeah, that's what I'm thinking. You go into yourself, was that a figment of my imagination?
Yeah.
Is this the Matrix?
And I truly thought that with Kate too. I looked through all the pictures of the open mic, and Kate is my girlfriend, if you don't know, by the way, and she wasn't in any of them. I was like, fuck. Because it's kind of at the time, and I've already mentioned how I kind of depersonalize and I don't feel like I'm real sometimes. Life chucks a curveball at everybody all the time, right? It happens. But then when it's curveball after curveball after curveball, like, this isn't real. This can't be happening. How, in 2 weeks, have I lost my job, not being able to see my kids, car got smashed, and my mum's had a stroke? How the fuck is all of that happening in this one time, on top of all this other shit? Like, that's not real. So I kind of depersonalized. But I had another one, which weirdly, I live really close to this place now, but there's an iron bridge in Dugafalki, and I was on the wrong side of it.
Don't make me get the book out.
Dugafalki.
That's a good one. You pronounce it beautifully.
I was on the wrong side of this bridge waiting for a train to come, and an old man walking his dog just come and stood right next to me, and he just like, you don't want to do it, mate. Whatever it is, it's going to pass. Do you want to come and sit and have a chat with me on the beach? And if you still feel the same way that you feel, I'll push you off. So it kind of made me laugh and stuff. He's like, right, come on, yeah. But there's no urgency. Like, it's just the way he dealt with it was perfect, right? Like, he says, just hear me out, right? If this is your last 10 minutes of life, let's go have a chat on the beach. Still feel the way you feel, I'll push you off. And he kind of winked at me. And again, that was just an old guy, right place, right time, with the right words that I needed to hear, just to put things into perspective.
Well, my question for you would be like, having gone through all these things and coming to the point in life where you are now, would you have changed anything now? Like, I kind of know what you're going to say, but would you want any easier route to where you are now? Because resistance breeds strength, okay? Mm-hmm. If you're talking about your biceps down the gym and you're doing 15 curls with a heavy weight, it's resistance, it breaks down the muscle, it comes back stronger. But that applies to absolutely everything. It certainly applies to your mind. When you go through challenges, and like, if something's worth having, it's worth suffering for, and all these these phrases that we use and accept and stuff, it's like whatever doesn't kill you makes you stronger is another one and stuff like that. It's just, but my favorite way of looking at it is always resistance breeds strength.
Yeah,
because it's very simple. Like it applies to the gym, it applies to your work life, it applies to your relationships. And having gone through those, really bad situations that you went through and come out to the point where you are now, I mean, would you change anything?
In hindsight, no. Right, like, because I've mentioned it a few times, they are some of the parts of every time I say I've been humbled by life so hard that I don't take anything for granted. Those were the times, right? And in hindsight now, I know how it turns out. So if I could go back, I'm like, okay, let the same things happen again. But obviously at the time, I had no idea what was going to happen. I felt so out of control in just this spiral of chaos, and I kept on trying to be a good person as well. So I was nice to people when I could be nice. I would help people when and where I could help people. But then I was still getting fucked over. So it's like, where's this karma people talk about then? I'm shouting to a god I don't believe in. Like, why aren't you helping me?
Did you ever pray when you were depressed?
I was too bitter. I was too angry.
Like, you didn't want to hear the answer?
No.
In case God comes back and goes, fucking, not my problem. You've got to sort yourself out. I'm invisible.
Just at the time was obviously...
Sorry, Tom, but when I say pray, I don't mean like in the Christian way that we're taught at school.
Yeah, but just like plead for help.
Yeah, did you appeal to a higher power?
I did, but it was more like I was like giving them shit rather than I was kind of appealing to them. So obviously, like I said, I come to the realization that like I grew up thinking that we're the world police and we're the good guys, and it turns out we're the bad guys destabilizing the rest of the fucking world, and we always have been.
Well, yeah, but you know how I feel about identity politics. Or I don't. For me, the concept of identity politics doesn't make really sense.
Yeah,
like if somebody. If we go out in the street and we observe somebody stabbing another person to death, we don't then go to that guy's house and arrest his missus too.
Yeah, of course.
Right, and his kids. So I know what you're saying. I'm not contradicting you at all. Like the people of this country in the past and the people who made those decisions, we clearly are living in a country that has benefited from those decisions. And we were taught
something different.
Well, yes. Like you say, very importantly, it's changed our perspective of what actually occurred in those instances. That's possibly the most important thing of it. But
it's the kind of whitewashing of it all, right? So like I grew up with this kind of patriotic idea. Britain was this like bastion of hope and civilization for the rest of the world, and that we just got there first and we were good at shit, and then we helped people, and that is the narrative I was sold. And then it was confusing because these things weren't making sense until I realized,
it's just a story. Yeah. The system abuses everybody around it, doesn't it? We get abused. We get the truth hidden from us. If the people of this country really understood what had been done in our name, like, we would rise up and do something about it. Perhaps that's why they don't want us to really know about it. I'm not going too conspiratorial here, but the people who that was affected in the other parts of the world, they have a completely different idea of it too, and it's very, very hard to understand all that. I don't know if it's necessarily worth feeling guilty for it, because I don't believe there's much we can really do about it. Okay?
Yeah, but it was more the first kind of realization. Like, I didn't really feel any personal guilt, but I just felt really silly because everything that I thought was wrong.
Well, I suppose we're talking about institutions, aren't we? Right? Because in a way, because what we're talking about is like, you feel silly, right? It's because you believed the institutions who taught you what we were talking about. Yeah. So like your school and your history books. And even like my granddads were World War II veterans and stuff, and they both had their idea of what happened during World War II, and they told me, and I believed them. But then it's like, it's hard to accept that they would have had quite a coloured perspective of what was going on, because they were in the middle of it.
Yeah, of course.
I can't be objective about it. Yeah, we this is another. I don't want to go off topic, but I mean, we've one of the problems we've got in modern life is that we put too much faith in these institutions. We give them the ability to lie to us.
Mm-hmm.
Like I personally, I'm in the process of rescinding that. What's the word I'm looking for? Rescinding that. I'm not going to let them do that anymore. So anyway, continue.
Yeah. So yeah, in terms of the kind of higher power, I was more still kind of what I'm holding on to now, which is still a kind of block for me, like when I'm learning about these religions and stuff. A religion would tell me that God has a plan, right? And I can only see a pixel of a TV, and he sees the whole screen, so he knows the whole picture, so it's not going to make sense to me. It's too abstract and blah, blah, blah. But then, like, you tell me how a kid getting bone cancer makes any sense in any kind of story ever. And then obviously there's the argument to be made of well, that brings other people together and it toughens people up for something way down the line. But I just, no, fuck you. That must be a choice. You're omniscient, you're omni everything, and you've chosen to take this route. So quite a lot of what I was sat on then was kind of held onto the same thing. Like, why? Why me? A lot of feeling sorry for myself, a lot of despair. At the same time, I wasn't taking accountability. So as soon as I did get a job that was paying me more, I end up smoking more weed than rent I'm paying, and then complaining that I'm skint and I can't sleep and I'm depressed. Well, that's because you're running through 1.5 ounces a week, you dickhead. But then I was in that thing, oh, well, you can't get addicted to it. Well, you can. It's just psychological and not physical. And what is addiction anyway, right? Is it that, oh, well, yeah, I can quit, I just don't want to.
Again, it's another thing that comes from the institutions. Like, why do we think that weed isn't addictive? Because we're told so by the institutions, of whether it's the experts on television. What I was trying to say earlier is rescind the permission. Like, I'm rescinding the permission. I don't give them the permission to tell me how the world is anymore. It takes a long time and a lot of years to get away from school and college and things like that. And so I insist on learning about the world on my own. Terms. I think a lot of what we're talking about, and a lot of what you're talking about, a lot of it is confusion and not knowing your place in the world, isn't it?
It's chaos and confusion. Yeah,
and you end up, if you follow what they're telling you, you end up in a place where it just doesn't make sense, and you will be working a 9-to-5 job that benefits the system. They need tax, right? Again, not to say there's anything wrong with working 9-to-5. I was a chef for a long time, working, Friday, Saturday, Sunday nights and stuff. So I'm not knocking a 9-to-5, but I'm just saying that there's a system in place in our lives. And it's not necessarily worth just giving yourself over to it. I've just got one thing to mention, by the way. That thing I was talking to you earlier about, it's called morphic resonance. And if anyone's interested in learning a bit more about it, the guy you're looking for is Rupert Sheldrake. He's the author who put those thoughts together about the idea that consciousness is a shared thing, and the experiments with the crossword and whatnot. That's an interesting one. I don't want to go too off topic, but as you've just given me a brain melter, I guess I've got one for you. What we're talking about there, this is the kind of conversations that we have between ourselves a lot. And this is what Chidda Duck Up is going to be about, finding our way through life. I don't want to take too much of a hard right turn, but it's just, as you've challenged me with a brain melter, here's one for you. It's not quite as brilliant as yours, but I was watching a film the other day and it made me think, right, imagine your neighbour had a rare blood type, like a very rare blood type, and there was people on the heart transplant waiting list, the liver transplant waiting list, the lung transplant waiting list, and like maybe a retina here or there, chuck it, why not, and an elbow donor was in there too. No, maybe forget that one. And let's say that if your neighbour was to, you took your neighbour, put them into a bath of ice cold water,
£7 style,
right, and slash their throat, or suffocated them, and it meant that the other 1, 2, 3, 4 people could live and another guy could see. Like in that film, £7. Like, you tell me, like, would you do it or not?
What is this, with someone else or with myself?
Your neighbour. You're sitting there thinking to yourself, prevent 4 people from dying.
Because it's not my choice, I would do nothing. Right? Like, it's
you bastard.
I think I'm a bastard asshole, right? If that guy wants to make this choice, then he can make this choice. It's not my role. I don't need to get involved in that.
So you wouldn't do it?
No. I would not get involved at all, right? Like there is 4 people that need to be saved, but I personally think the most important thing in life in general is the value and the autonomy of the individual. right? So I don't think that 4 lives are worth more than 1 life. I think it's all on a one-to-one basis, that it's all valued at the same thing, right? It's the same as the trolley experiment. If there's a train going down, you can kill 1 person or 5 people. It's heading towards a 5. Do you pull the lever? Like,
it's a bit like automated cars as well, right?
There's a lot of nuance there. So I would want to know who's on the track, right? Can I see them? Because if there's any kids in the 5 and it's an old man on the 1, I'm pulling the lever. Of course I am, right? If I've got a skin in the game, so if the 1 was my daughter and it's 5 strangers, I'm pulling the lever, right? Like, well, no, I'm leaving the lever and I'm letting the 5 strangers get run over, right? Because I've got my biases there. But if it's just these blank individual things, and I haven't caused this train to go towards them and I haven't tied them onto the track, I'm taking a step back.
Who do you grant the opportunity to tell you whether that's right or wrong, right? Like, where's morality coming from? Who decides what morality is? Who decides whether that's okay?
It's not tied to law, which that is...
Let's say you save your daughter, 5 people die, and say, well, that wasn't very moral of you. Would you even give a fuck?
Not give a single fuck.
So what if the people who need... Okay, so what if it's like some member of your family that needed a heart transplant and you knew there is that guy next door?
If I was involved with some kind of doctor, right, so I knew that doing this action would mean...
Oh, yeah. We'll have to make that as a little disclaimer, yeah, like, for sure he's getting the heart. Yeah, the person in your family is definitely going to get this heart and it's going to work out real good. And, we'll build on this, but let's go from there.
Yeah, well, if it's one of my kids, probably.
Yeah. Oh, I would.
Yeah, right. Like, if it's someone else, probably not. But, like, I'm being totally honest with you.
I just suddenly realised people are listening, actually. I'm just having the typical sort of stone conversation that we normally have, only we're not stoned.
I am being totally honest with you. So I am telling you the truth. I'm not saying that my choice is justified, but I'm telling you what I would do, right? If it came to the world but burning down and me saving my daughter, I'm saving my daughter and the world is burning, right? And that was a choice that I'll make every single day, every single time, right? And, that's selfish. Fucking right. Of course I'm fucking selfish.
You're supposed to be selfish.
Me and my kids are more important than the rest of the entire world, right? In my view, I don't expect you to think the same. As far as I'm concerned, from my perspective and from my point, these things matter more than anything else, right? And, would you really have your daughter fed and 5 whole families go starving? Yes.
Well, look, you and I would throw ourselves on a hand grenade for our children,
without a doubt.
So I think that's pretty final. I mean, there's like letting 5 other people die is one thing. Like, I'm willing to let myself die for our kid.
Of course, it's no question. It's built into me, mate.
Yeah, we have to actually have a choice in that.
No, it's how I'm programmed.
Basically, we're saying the guy next door is getting chopped up. Fair enough.
Yeah,
just thought I'd wonder about that.
It's hard because these questions do have so many nuances that aren't kind of ticked into. Yeah. So like, is it this? Like, how am I connected? If it's objective enough to where it's other people I don't know, then I'd say, no, I'm not getting involved in that.
Yeah.
If I have skin in the game, I'm getting involved and I'm bending it towards me. If there's any alternative, if I thought that there was a way where I could feed my daughter and feed the 5 families, of course I would do that. But if it really comes down to brass task, are you feeding your daughter or these people? See you later, you people.
All of this sits on a web of like morality. If you don't grant somebody the opportunity to give you a definition of what morality is, like, again, we're going back to institutions, but I guess if you're a religious person, that's where your sort of structure of morality is going to be coming from.
Yeah, you have your objective.
But as you and I are not religious people, then we can make our own version of morality, essentially, can't we? Like, if we say it's moral, then it's moral, right? Like putting my family first no matter what, that is the moral right.
There isn't one reality. Everybody has their own reality. So all of your biases and everything that you've ever learned and everything that you think and every way you've ever acted leads to you thinking the way you think and feeling the way you feel, and how you perceive your entire reality is separate to me. So if you find somebody who was born into a religion, whether that's Islam, Christianity, it doesn't matter what it is, they truly, hand on heart, believe everything. They have been taught this is fact, never been told to question or even thought to. In their reality, then this God exists, this happens, that happens. That's fact to them. It's not to me. We don't live in the same reality. That's a mindfuck in itself. Just to start to think, okay, well, we're all in different realities and we all think kind of differently. So in my reality, my main priority right now is me and my family. If there is any opportunity to help other families along the way, of course, I will do that. But like I said, when it really comes down to it, in my reality, you talk about the idea of morality. Is that an individual thing, or is that how you're perceived by other people by how you behave? So is a morality pushed onto you?
Shared morality.
By how people would judge you? I would rather the entire world think I'm a mega cunt and my daughter go to sleep with a full belly this one's tangible and real, and this is abstract and it isn't.
That changes how you judge people through history and the people around us too.
Exactly.
Doesn't it?
It's real easy when you're not in the pot to say, like, you see it all the time with police officers, and they do, oh well, why didn't you shoot him in the leg? Mate, shut up. You have no idea what you're talking about, and neither do I, right? This would be like me watching a scuba accident and saying, oh, well, why didn't he just swim back up? Because you get the bends and he die a horrendous death because of the nitrogen bubbles in his breath. You don't know what you're talking about. You're not in the situation. Even if you're in it, everyone's got a plan till they're punched in the face. Now, imagine this with guns and bombs and all of this terrifying shit. This human being is under such an immense amount of pressure. I'm supposed to sit here from our spliff bunker and say, oh, he made the wrong choice there. Shut up, mate.
It's a vital piece of growing up, isn't it? When you stop just judging everybody and throwing bombs and morality bombs at everybody as if you know better. You really need to get that out of your system if you're going to ever grow up and find.
What an annoying phase, though. I went through it. Everybody does. It happens between like kind of 18 to mid-20s when you stop giving a fuck, but you're just super virtuous. I
was going to say, are we talking about virtue signaling? Because that's a whole nother topic. I mean, virtue signaling, Jesus Christ, that's the modern day replacement for a personality, isn't it? Especially if you're talking about bloody social media. This is what the delight in not having social media. I love it. I'm so glad that I'm not part of that world. But I mean, it seems to be that so many people like virtue signaling. It's when I was a bit younger, a bit pre-social media, if you called somebody narcissistic, God, that was a really biting, cruel, horrible thing to be called. You don't want to be called that. That's a horrible thing to be called. A narcissist, or a narcissus. It's like, oh my God, you're sitting there sniffing your own farts and rating it out of 10 for the fucking, for the flavour. It's like, what a waste of time. What a useless human being. What a selfish and basically stupid person you must be to sit there staring at your own reflection in the pond. But nowadays, you hear that, and you never really heard the word narcissist. No, you certainly never heard that word because it doesn't exist. But narcissist, it was like a rare insult, like a rare one for if you really wanted to hit the nail on the head with somebody's personality defect. And if nowadays it's just like it's everywhere, isn't it? And I think a lot of it's tied to virtue signaling, and it's become like when people use social media, it's like, have they got time to fit any genuine, authentic sort of parts of themselves into their social media profile?
The highlight reel of their life.
Between large bites of virtue signaling. It's like, well, let's get the virtue signaling done first. That's the most important thing. That's what everyone else is doing. I need to join in. I need to tie myself to this cause. That's what everyone else is doing. And if there's any time left, then I might just sort of share a picture of myself from childhood or whatever it may be. It just seems to be one of the most destructive aspects of modern society.
And it takes away from the actual people who are actually trying to help, because quite a lot, especially with Twitter, right? It's a good job you're not on it. Quite a lot of Twitter, if you imagine Twitter as an actual space, I'm heading down to Twitter now, mate, like it's a bar. You go in there, and what it is people getting up on tables and shouting, sexual assault is bad. We need to teach men not to rape. Every man knows not to rape. Some people just don't care and do it anyway. And that is the fucking reality of it, right?
Yeah, the people, who are you talking to? Because if you're talking to a rapist, he don't give a fuck.
Yeah.
If you're talking to somebody who's not a rapist, well, then they don't give a fuck. Who gives a fuck about what you say? Well, rape is wrong. Duh.
Everybody knows that.
Jesus
right? Like,
Christ.
murder's wrong, right? So, let's ban crime. Good idea.
Give them a sticker. Well done.
Yeah. Why did no one think of that? So quite a lot of it, right? I understand trying to express that you share the same sentiment as people. So you could say things like, I like that, right? But on Twitter, when it's on social media and they're saying these obvious things, so it's easy interaction. I say this statement, how does anybody disagree with me, right? A sexual assault is bad and it shouldn't happen. Like, maybe you could make some stupid argument about, well, they were asking for it. Well, you're a fucking idiot.
Well, no, I can see how
that way.
You see, this is the thing. This is why I'm glad I'm not on it. You get dragged in because it's part of our personality. When somebody says something that's retarded as that, you can't help but try and pick a hole in it.
Yeah.
You want to say something to bust their ball, don't you?
But it's rage bait. It's a trap.
Fuck it. No, it ain't. And then next thing you're off.
It's rage bait, mate. It's a trap. So you see things where there's people that are throwing up these straw man arguments to attack. Right, so it's like nobody thinks this way, and there's a lot of performative activism, which then takes away from the actual cause and the actual fact. A good example is how diluted being called a homophobe is. A better example than that is racist. Really think of what an actual racist is, right? So if you think of an actual racist, the type of person who genuinely believes they are superior to another race purely based on pigmentation and melanin that they don't understand. If you think of what that is, and then you're going to call a 13-year-old boy who has said the N-word while he's listening to NWA, are you going to call him racist as well? You're putting these two people in the same box. So now, I remember 10 years ago, 15 years ago, if someone said that guy's a racist, right, I think, well, I'll fucking stay away from him. Now, maybe he wore a Rasta hat one time.
I'm going to have to find a new phrase for somebody who deserves that phrase, right?
Exactly. It's too diluted.
It is too diluted. I agree with you. It's damn good. I'm not on Twitter. It comes back to what I was saying earlier about identity politics. For me, the whole concept of it just doesn't really make sense. It's just not applicable to the real world. It might work on Twitter. One of my favourite comedians is a guy called Greg Proops. I absolutely adored his podcast. It's called The Smartest Man in the World.
Yeah.
You know, sort of sets the tone. He's just this like San Franciscan smart ass pontificating on the world and his thoughts. I thought they were brilliant. You know, I really liked his work, and I went as far as going to his book signing.
Oh, awesome!
Yeah, in Manchester. It was the first time I'd driven outside of Llandudno for like a year. All of a sudden, I'm on like a 6-lane motorway, a 6-lane roundabout in Manchester, going shit. Yeah. I remember that's what I remember about
that roundabout.
Oh, mate, but it was worth it because I got to meet Greg Proops, and he's such a legend. I met him afterwards, and what a guy! And then Trump got elected, and like I said, I'm not going political. I don't give a shit talking about Trump. It's not interested in Trump, but I am interested in Greg Proops, and I loved his podcast very much. And basically, it ruined him. So leading up to the election, it was like, well, this idiot, who does he think he is? It's not like he's never going to get in. Like, imagine if he got in, how terrible it'd be. And then he got in, and he just had an absolute meltdown. It just ruined it. I'm listening to him going, Greg, keep your pecker up, mate. Come on. Like I know it's bad, but he couldn't get over it, basically, because he could perceive Donald Trump to be racist. From his point of view, I can understand why he was deeply upset, because, I mean, the way he saw it is like this country's being run by a racist, and that's not at odds with that's at odds, with somebody like Greg Proops. He's a liberal person, and of course it should be, like, that's insanity. But the problem I had with Greg Proops is then one of his things, he started saying, using the phrase white people too much, right?
Yeah.
So he's like blah 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 blah, well, that's what white people do say, blah blah blah, that's what white people do. And it literally, I was listening to his podcast every week, and it got to the point where it was really pissing me off. So I wrote him an email, and I'm like, Greg, look, I love your comedy, but you talking about how much you hate white people, because he was saying detrimental things about white people and using that term. So you're talking about my kids, they're white people, and my parents, they're white people. Like, I can promise you they're not racist. I promise you. Like, my parents, when I was raised, they told me specifically, if you ever treat somebody different because of the colour of their skin, we're going to go mental on you, right? You do not do that. You've got no right to do that. And they taught me the right way to interact with people with respect. Irrespective of their colour of their skin, right? Of
course, it should go without saying, shouldn't it?
It should. It really should. And to be honest with you, that was pretty standard in Coventry in those times. I don't know anybody who was racist at all. I had all kinds of different ethnicities amongst my friendship circle.
You get smashed in the mouth if you are.
Of course, you can't just be racist. Like, it's not really good. It's not going to work very well for you, because, like, the thing is, like, I stood up for my Asian friends against racist people saying racist things about them. Like, I'm not on the white side because we're both white. Like, I mean, what the fuck?
What the fuck kind of?
The fuck are you on about? That's insanity to think that. You know, like one of my closest friends of all time, like Ratinder, Ratty, Ricky. He's got 3 names. Yeah. His real name's Ratinder. When we were kids, it was Ratty. Now he's Ricky. If somebody was racist to him, I'd you know, shoulder to shoulder with him, kick the crap out of him if it was necessary. I just said, like, do you mind to just stop using that term, because like I know you're enjoying yourself here, but like, you're insulting my family and they've done nothing to you or anyone else,
purely based on the colour of their skin.
Just based on the colour of their skin. I think you're becoming what you hate. And he sent I sent him quite a detailed thing with respect, you know, because I want to treat the situation with respect. And he sent one back just saying, yeah, you're right, what really I should really use the phrase white people in power. And I was like, okay, but you're not going to. Like, the next podcast, he was banging on about, well, that's what white people do, and that's white people for you, and all this shit. And I was like, dude, well, you've become what you hate. Yeah. You're calling Donald Trump a racist. You're obsessed with race yourself, man. What happened to the humour? What happened to the gags? Like, you used to have a good laugh listening to your podcast, and now you've just disappeared up your own arsehole, and you're crawling around on all fours looking for the light switch. Like, just fucking stop.
And it bears no relevance either, right? Like, people that claim to be colourblind, I don't see colour, shut up, stop lying, right? Like it's okay to recognise and acknowledge differences, right? But I don't understand why it bears any relevance in any other fucking section, right?
The only thing it does is bring people down.
Yeah.
Right? It doesn't benefit anybody. This is the point.
It makes division.
It makes people sad. It makes people depressed. It makes some people feel guilty for something they haven't done. Mm-hmm. It's a really horrible thing to have.
Yeah, this weird idea of, like, inherited guilt and stuff like that. Like, no, fuck you. Like, I just think it's It's strange, and like, obviously white people in quotes is an easy target right now, right? Like white people be liking all of this. How is that relevant? It's the same as I've said this before about sexuality and stuff, right? How does it bear any fucking relevance? If I had to get up and tell people about myself, my sexuality and my race would be so far down the list it might not even come up, right? Like there is so much, but if I open it up with, oh, you're right, yeah, I'm a white bisexual male, I identify as male. How the fuck is this relevant? Okay, what can I tell from your character? Nothing, right? I can get nothing. All I know is you have white skin and sometimes you watch gay porn. That is the extent of the information I can pull. Why the fuck are you telling me this?
That doesn't tell me which restaurant we should go to, dude.
Are you a mother? Are you a father? What kind of music do you like? What kind of films do you like? Do you read? What do you read? Do you exercise? All of these different things where I could actually get a judgment off you. But if all the information that I've got is your skin colour and your sexual... What the fuck?
Doesn't make a lot of sense, does it?
There's no relevance, mate. I truly don't understand.
And this is one of the things that I'm glad I'm not on social media for, because I do believe that social media is basically contributing to the sort of destruction of mental health in this country in general, especially amongst younger people.
Mate.
Yeah, but
it's not even a question.
There you go. And it's not just younger people, is it? It's basically everybody. I feel like I'm not missing out on that, to say the least. But I just think, I just thought it's worth mentioning because it's something that brings people down, and it's something we can do without.
It is. And I think that is a good spot to wrap up this episode of Cheer the Duck Up podcast. If you're not quitting social media, feel free to follow us on them. We have a YouTube channel. If you're listening on something that lets you rate the podcast, please do. It would mean an awful lot to us. This has been a bit more of a ranty episode than normal, but it is important to recognise the bullshit, rant about it, get it out and vent. If you agree with us, if you feel the same way you feel, or if you disagree, reach out on our socials and let us know. We'd love to hear from you. Hope you enjoy the rest of your week, and I will see you soon. Goodbye, everybody.
Bye-bye, everybody.